let's try it. Let's go for it. Run towards the risk. Comfort zones don't keep you safe. They keep you small.
Welcome to In Her Direction, a talk series highlighting inspiring women in video, media, creative, and beyond. We're joined here by Kara Barnett, an award-winning senior creative at Apple TV+, former TV producer, and today we're talking about pivoting careers and finding and staying true to your creative identity. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with career pivots. What inspired you to take the leap from TV and video production to design?
It was a natural evolution, right? I think that in general, I consider myself a creative of all sorts. And so starting out, I started in casting and then went into actual linear television production and, ran the gamut of that really interested me. And then as I moved into social digital content, that was really interesting to me. And then more into social editorial at Netflix. And so now that I've pivoted into design at Apple, it really is about challenging myself. It's about keeping myself sharp and making sure that I'm always pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And so it's just a natural evolution. I think also I'm a Libra, so I'm very aesthetically driven. I love things that look good, that can evoke emotion through visuals. And so it's just a natural progression for me, I believe. So when I look back at my career, even before I got into design, I was always tapping into amazing design and visual creatives. When I worked at BET, creating promos for the BET Awards, and I was working with amazing art directors like Dana Kinlaw. I was under creative leadership for Kendrick Reed, Adrian Hilton. So they really helped me to shape the details, the voice of the network, and honing in on how do we pull emotion into the music choice, the shot choice. And so that detailed training is really what I honed there. And that went to Netflix, and there was such a level of autonomy. That's a creative landscape where they are very much let's try it, let's go for it, run towards the risk. And so really getting a chance to not only test my creative limits, but also as a leader there, I was able to hire and work with a lot of diverse young agencies and young creatives who brought in fresh perspectives. So, learning from them and working with them and okay, so cool. So this is what we always do, but have we ever tried something like this? And that really helped me to sharpen my risk-taking muscle and skill. And something that I bring in now, even where I am now, I'm always the one that's going to be well, why do we do it that way? Let's try something different. And taking risks takes practice. No one's just born I'm just going to jump off the cliff. You have to get good. You have to practice taking the art of taking risk. And so that was a great space for that. Netflix really taught me how to take, the right kind of risk. And so I do leverage all my past experience. Even now, working where I work, I bring all of that with me.
You say Netflix taught you to take the right type of risk. Could you elaborate on that a little more? How can I take the right type of risk?
I think, honestly, I'm talking about, and very specifically to my experience there, it was a place where I was a creative leader. So I was not only challenged to uphold the standard of what Netflix is known to do, but I was also challenged to bring something new to the table and be innovative. And so I think you have to learn the rules to know how to break them. The right type of risk requires research, it requires strategy, it requires kind of looking at the tea leaves, listening to the audience and saying, okay, what are people asking for in the comments? We post things that people are saying hey, I would love to see more of this. And so, while there's certain kind of content that entity is known for, if the audience is asking for something different, that's the right type of risk. We won over 10 industry awards for a 6-part documentary we did on Black photography. It was about Black History Month and storytelling. But of course, the standard quote would have been to do something about filmmaking and Black filmmaking. But we're well, photography is also storytelling. And there's a huge community that probably doesn't think that we are speaking to them. So why don't we make a documentary on YouTube about Black photography and the storytelling that goes into that? And it was great. We won Webbies, we won Pro Maxes. And so those are the right type of risks. You take the time to look and assess what the needs are, and then you go for it.
And it's people in the comments, say what you feel because you might get noticed.
Right. I'm a big fan of looking in the comments and seeing what people are asking for.
And I also really love what you said, learn the rules so you know how to break them.
Yep.
That is so important too, because I feel like you need to have all the information to also innovate further.
Yes.
And take risks and stuff. So that's awesome.
To me, that's a big part of even being a corporate creative, which is kind of what I consider myself. I'm a creative, I do passion projects, but I work within brands. And so people often want to come into these global brands, Viacom, Netflix, Apple, and they want to be well, this is how I do it. Nobody's moving. Nobody's budging. You have to respectfully learn the rules of where you work. So then as you build trust in relationships, like I've been where I've been now for 3 years. And so I've put in the time for people to understand the caliber of the work, the quality of work. So if I say, hey, can we try something different? There's a level of trust that people have in my work and what I do that I now know I can now know how to break a rule here or there. Not all of them, but you know.
Yeah, and when you're a team too, nobody likes someone coming in and just, changing everything and not considering all the important work that you have done or the team has done in the past too. So
I've seen many people crash and burn, and I'm not against like pushing the boundaries, but you can't just come in on day one and swing the hammer. Like that's never gonna work.
yeah, so many good visuals. I see hammers swinging. We don't want that. Amazing. So when do you know it's the right time to make a career pivot? What sparked you to be like, wait, I want to do this now?
For me, I mean, there's some clear signs. I think there's one when you just feel like you've hit it all in your current position. Like I'm no longer challenged. I'm no longer excited. I've done all the things I wanted to do professionally, creatively. I'm no longer excited by the idea of what I do. That's always a sign that like it's time to pivot. When we look at the headlines right now, we look at our the creative industry. There's such things happening where a lot of people are being challenged to think of their skill sets differently. I think a lot of times we are so kind of conditioned to let other people tell us what kind of creative we are, what kind of person we are, what do we do for a living. And I challenge people not to put themselves in a box. Like for instance, I've thought of this. I've said, okay, so if my industry went down with the ship tomorrow and I can no longer do television, I can no longer do entertainment, what are my skill sets that I love? I love creating moments for others. I love evoking emotion through what I create. And I love the logistics of putting together a moment. A lot of those things are also applicable in event design, event management, wedding planning. Like, so you think out the box of like, okay, so if I'm not doing this, what is a pivot that would be interesting for me? Like for me personally, I love creating. So, when I was making TV shows, I wasn't really thinking about social and digital, but I noticed that people were no longer running home to watch TV anymore as I was on shows like, America's Next Top Model, things like that. Those were appointment television shows when they were on TV, but we moved away from that. YouTube and just social media in general has really democratized how people watch television. So I assess that like, if I stay here, I'm kind of working in a medium that's no longer leading the charge. I want it to be on the cutting edge. So I moved to social and digital and like I wanted to learn how digital content worked and how do we get people to look where we want them to look at a certain time. And when you think of things like Love Island, which is one of the things I think we all now sit down and watch at the same time, it's a very rare thing that we're all watching something at the same time. But I had to work Love Island into this somehow.
I mean, yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. But even now, like as I'm looking at the tea leaves of my industry, like I design is interesting to me, and it's something that I hadn't tried. I advise people to look ahead, be strategic about not just your career, but your skill set and what else you could do. Comfort zones don't keep you safe; they keep you small. So I'm a big fan of pushing your boundaries.
So what is one mindset shift that helped you embrace this change and uncertainty regarding your career pivot?
I remember when I was between jobs. I had left Netflix and I hadn't yet started at Apple. And so it was a summer for the first time in my life, not really anchored by a brand and a job. And that was uncertain for me. That was uncomfortable for me. And I think for me, something that helped me to shift my mindset was at the time I was like, okay, I've left Netflix. No one's going to care anymore. Like, what am I doing? And I posted, on LinkedIn, like, hey, this is my closing chapter of this. I'm looking forward to what's next. And I was blown away by people's support and their confidence in me as a person that I, at that time, probably was struggling with a little bit. People saying like, oh my God, I can't wait to see where you go next. I'm following wherever you go. When I was growing up, it was more about your reputation. Your reputation was important, but personal brand wasn't something that you really focused on in terms of like, how do I make sure that people follow me as a brand and recognize my work outside of where I work. And so just understanding that reputation and personal brand are two different things. And it's okay to have both. It's okay to build both because at the end of the day, jobs come and go, but like who you are, how you show up as a creative, as somebody who works, your work ethic is your personal brand. And it's equally important. That helped to shift my mindset of like, it doesn't matter where I land. I'm still who I am. And, there is a support system there for me. So yeah, that was it.
This is a great segue to the next topic I would love to discuss, which is finding someone's creative identity and
yes.
people who are potentially in a place where what is my creative identity? Who am I? I would love to hear about a time that you questioned your creative identity?
Oh, we're getting into the therapy. We're getting into the weeds. The summer between Netflix and Apple. I feel like in the moment, it felt like forever. I felt like I was wandering the desert aimlessly. It was 2 months. It was 2 months. But
That's a long
in the moment, you're like, I don't know what, because once you
Yeah.
don't think about the fact that like you graduate college, you get a job and you just go. And so for the first time in my career, I just had a summer off and it felt so weird. I felt so untethered. I wasn't comfortable with it. I am very much about creating at all times. So my creative identity was very much tied to my output. And that was not the healthiest way to be. In hindsight, I'm so glad that that happened, that moment, that season of untetheredness, because I had unconsciously associated a lot of my identity with that, with me being able to work and create and collaborate. And so just having that moment to be still, to be calm, to really challenge my creative voice outside of a corporate space was great. And, uncomfortable, but it was necessary. I was able to wake up at whatever time I wanted to wake up. And I realize now that the best creativity comes from lived experiences. And at the time that I was just going, I wasn't really living and experiencing things and really pouring in to be able to create the best work. And so those 2 months were tough. Those were a shift in my creative identity for sure. But coming out the other side, the work has been better. The balance of my mental health has been better. I was reading a lot during that summer, and a book that I read called Shine Bright by Danielle Smith. It's about the contributions of Black women in music. At the very end, she talks a lot about how women in general, we spend so much time with the ings, and the ings are all the activities, the mothering, the sewing, the cooking, the cleaning, the singing, the dancing, and it's all the ings. And what lies underneath that is this really silent and latent fear of being forgotten. Because if we stop doing the ings, does anybody remember that we existed? And so that really hit me hard in that season of like, am I just functioning to make sure that I'm remembered and make sure that people remember that I'm here? And so disconnecting from that like pursuit of activity and that like having to always have something to show people that I made was really powerful to me. I have my work. I still enjoy my work, but I have passion projects and I take my rest seriously. And yeah, I'm a much better creative for it.
This all kind of birthed from this unplanned career shift. Of course, when something like that happens, it's hard, it's devastating, to people. They're like, I don't know where to go next. But I've heard so many wonderful stories of like a rebirth almost, and people, having to go through this hard time to kind of find themselves a little bit more.
If that hadn't happened, I would have been going. Like I said, I enjoy creating. So like I saw nothing wrong with the work I was doing. I was having fun, helping to create great things. And yeah, but at the same time, I wasn't realizing that I was like entangling so much of my value and self-worth in that. And so it was a great opportunity to like detangle that. Yeah.
So during this summer, besides reading that awesome book,
Yes.
which I'm going to check out, what other steps did you take to help you find your creative identity again?
I just took it slower. I collaborated with friends and did a film about the high mortality rates of Black and brown women in childbirth and the emotional after effects of like starting a family. And we sold the film to Viacom, like things that just weren't on my bucket list or weren't on my priority list for, when I was working full time. Like I actually had time to like slow down and tap into some things that were just for me. I took a retreat. So the Waking Hours retreat, shout out to Maya Watson. Was in Sayulita, Mexico. And I went, it was a small group of us, and we went, and the whole purpose of the retreat was to tap into just our purpose. And the whole idea is like, how do you spend your hours and the time you have on this earth? And I remember we had this one day where we had this therapeutic expert come in and talk to us about our bodies and our body's response to trauma and panic and alarm. And we did an ice plunge that day. It was my first time ever doing an ice plunge. I think it was my last time. I don't think I've done it since because it was gnarly. But like, the lesson was so great. So we went in for 2 minutes. It was like, of course, chunks of ice. And so the lesson there was that you're going to go into this ice and your body's going to start to tell you that something's wrong, like that you're in danger because it's the pain of the ice and the cold. So your mind is going to start panicking, but we have the control over our mind to say, I'm okay. I am not drowning. I'm not freezing. I'm in this for 2 minutes. So if I can control my breathing, control my mind, you'll notice your body starts to like calibrate, and your body, after a while, your body will start to heat up to balance out the temperature. And so the idea that one, you can control these levels of panic, control these levels of anxiety just by telling yourself, nothing's wrong, I'm okay. And then two, without you doing anything, your body takes care of itself. There's a million things happening in your body that you have no idea, you can't feel it, you can't control it, but it's keeping you alive just by nature. So when you take that concept to a macro level of like, there's things I can control and things I can't control. So if I can enjoy the things I can control and just know that like, things are happening, doors are opening for me, my name is in rooms I don't know about yet. All I can do is create and stay in this lane and then just flow. It's so much easier to like really operate in your true creative identity because I can only do what I can do and then everything else flows around me.
I feel like that lesson can be taken in so many aspects of life. We're talking about therapy, really. Like, I love that. And it's kind of too, like if you're stressed, I can't think straight. And then if you're in a kind of a flow, calm state, you're like, things just start coming to me. So that's kind of a lesson there too. So what is one thing you learned about yourself during that experience that summer that made you stronger creatively?
One thing I learned about myself that I really value is the strength of my own creative voice, even if it's not backed up by the echo of a corporate brand. Like I love working with I love working with brands. I love being in house where I work now and just like being able to like learn and utilize what I do there. But the moments and the opportunities to work outside of that structure where I can be a little bit more free and kind of make my own projects and, collaborate with other friends who are doing cool stuff. And that really like having that like strength of that collaboration and just the strength of creative freedom is always so rewarding. So like, the duality of both is important. But yeah, that's what I really learned is to really value that.
So in talking about corporate where it's like you have your own creative brand and vision, but of course, we all have jobs and we're working sometimes in corporate and, for brands and things like that. So as someone who's a creative, how do you stay authentic to your creative vision when there are external expectations from, brands?
As a corporate creative, I think that we have to be realistic that we can't come in here and just do what we want to do, right? There are ROIs, there are stakeholders. And so I think there's an expectation of I come in, I understand what the foundation of the deliverable is. What is the bottom line of what we're trying to do? Are we trying to get these people to look at this title? Are we trying to grow a subscriber? Like whatever our thing is, that's what we have to be very clear on. And so then you figure out where's the flexibility. Okay, can we try a different music idea? Can we work with a different kind of agency? Can we go more graphic versus going more clip based? And so I think once again, you learn the rules so you know how to break them or bend them. So that's one way to go about it. But in terms of just my authentic voice, I bring my personality and my experience and my culture with me. And so there is a level of, you hired me to bring in this perspective. So whether or not that completely guides the whole creative on this particular project, I'm in the room to lend a perspective on like, well, I think this might work better if we do this because based on who I am, this is how I would perceive this. And so I think you want to make sure you stand up as a trusted voice and say, hey, I was hired to be a voice. I was hired to, stand up and speak about what I think is cool about this, what I think we could do better. And in my experience, like to this day, where I work, where I've worked in the past, like it's always been valued of like, Kara brings a value add in that she always brings a perspective. So I think you have to believe in your own trusted voice and your own authentic voice for other people to also value it.
Sometimes when I'm in a new job surrounded by really smart people, I think my voice gets a little quieter just because I'm like, what do I know? Like I'm new here, but it's a good reminder just be like, I'm here for a reason.
Oh yeah. I don't think you have to be the loudest in the room because I'm not the loudest person in any room, but you have to be a voice that's very clear on like, here's the thing that I think we are doing wrong or doing right, or here's what I think we can do better.
So let's talk about your creative insight sessions that you hold, which are bite-sized mini mentor sessions that you offer, which is so cool. And how I kind of found you on LinkedIn, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool that she's doing that. How would you say you use your platform in that way to help these creatives?
Sometimes it is about, hey, I want to pivot to this new career and I have no idea how to structure my portfolio or my website. That's an easy conversation. Sometimes it's people are in interviews all day, every day, because that's the kind of times that we're in, and they forget the art of conversation and how to have a conversation. And so sometimes we just talk about what we saw this week that we both liked and really helps to kind of jog their conversation skills, because I also love to keep those sharp for myself of like I'm always in creative pitch mode, so sometimes I forget how to like, okay, let's just talk about what we saw this week, and I get to learn things. Sometimes people just need a pick me up. Like it's hard to be a young creative, to be a diverse creative, to be job hunting nonstop, and you just need someone to talk. Hey, did you see Love Island this week? Hey, let's talk about Sinners. Oh my God, the marketing campaign. Like let's talk about things that are just life. And it helps. And I think also we forget as we get into our careers, like older creatives, people who are attaining levels of success. One, I remember when I was an emerging creative and it was like, how can I get time with someone just to pick their brain, right? We forget one, what it felt like to graduate from college and know nobody, or just like need the experience and the time. I am so thankful to the people in my career who let me just come into their literal offices and just yap. Because sometimes you forget the comfort level of just like sitting down with someone and just talking about the things that you like. And it takes some of the weight out of it. I'm not an interviewer. You're not trying to impress me for a job. We're just talking. It's connections. It's networking. It's just being the good that I wanted to have when I was coming into the industry, and the good that I still need as I keep growing in my career. So just putting out what I want to get back.
One last question. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Yes. Okay. I love this question. If I could go back and tell my younger self something, it would be, it all matters. And I say that to mean, I think that, you come out of college and you're very much like, I know what I want to do, but then the first job may not be the most glamorous. Like one of my first jobs, I was a post-production coordinator in Stamford, Connecticut. And it's in TV, so it sounds like it's in the right track. I was sitting at a desk, making Excel spreadsheets, plugging in edit sessions for editors. That was my entire job. And I was frustrated. I would cry on the way home because I'd be like, this is not what I wanted to do. And I don't. And so, there was that. There was then me working on Top Model, it got exciting. But at first, when you're an assistant, you're helping Kim Kardashian park her truck in a parking spot. It's not the most glamorous thing. And you're like, how is this helping me get to this creative role I want to do, right? And so I think about all the jobs that's got me on my path, things that weren't clearly tied to like, I want to be a creative leader, but I don't get how this is helping. But like those Excel spreadsheets help me to really get detailed and focused, and help me to really focus on like, okay, timing of things and how logistically things should work. Helping to park Kim Kardashian and helping to like get Tyra Banks' writer right was also details. And it was like really navigating, like predicting the needs of others and understanding how talent gets dealt with. Because that's a big part of my job now, is like working with talent. And this, I will say a lot of my talent handling came from Top Model. Even like casting, I was a producer on Top Model, and we'd go to cities and we'd meet young ladies and we'd make these 1-page pitches. And I was like, this is so tedious. But at the same time, I now pitch all the time. I pitch concepts and art and video assets as part of my job at Apple. But like, so when you think about the path that leads you to it, every job taught you something if you look at it right. And so I would say to her, it all matters. It's all going to count. It's all on the job training for where you want to go. And even what I'm doing now is training for whatever my next thing is. So yeah, it all matters, Kara.
You can follow all the exciting things Kara is doing on LinkedIn at /createdbykb, on Instagram at createdby.kara, and you can visit her website createdbykb.com. Thanks for listening in, and see you next time.